The Clark County Medical Examiners began exhumation at 7 a.m. at Palm Mortuary of an unidentified female who was found deceased downtown at the Greyhound bus depot in 1982. The coroner's office was awarded a $400,000 grant from the U.S. Department of Justice to launch a program to help solve missing person cases through the use of DNA testing. Here's a representative of Clark County to tell you more.
In the industry, so to speak, there is a very set process that's done. There's a minimal casket that's used. There's a minimal vault that's used. The vault, by the way, is the concrete box that the casket normally stays in. Different qualities of vaults have different ability to prevent moisture from coming in. The use of the vault, oftentimes, if you look across the cemetery, you'll see that the ground is generally flat. If you go to an old cemetery, you'll notice that the ground is very wavy. The reason for that is in the old days, they didn't use any type of a vault or protective container over the casket. And the casket would only withstand the pressures of the earth for a period of time, and then it would collapse. By using the vault, it prevented that collapsing, and it was multifold, of course, for the loved ones want their remains protected appropriately. The other part of it is for the aesthetics and for the maintenance of the property itself. And then the last thing is with these vaults, many times when that's used, it won't necessarily prevent the intrusion of moisture. So once the moisture gets, because you're at a certain level in the ground, there's a natural moisture that's there. Once that happens, there will be a deterioration of the casket itself. And so we may be dealing with that today. And that's not uncommon, but I'm pleased to tell you that of the 10 exhumations that we've had, we've just been notified that we have gotten gotten a DNA sample that's been a positive marker system. The markers are there, so we have DNA on all 10. We'll be uploading them to the CODIS system, and then the hope is that there's a match out there. So so far the program's exceeding my expectations. You always wonder if you'll get 10 out of 10, and we may not.
Yeah, you point to an interesting. You're not quite certain if you're going to get the DNA.
You don't know
sample.
that if you're going to get that DNA. I mean, I think because people watch television, they get this feeling that there's going to be this automatic DNA. You run it through the lab, you're going to get DNA. That is not necessarily the case. And so when you're dealing with remains that have been buried for a period of time, or they may be exposed to certain environments, that may inhibit the ability of the lab to obtain the DNA samples. So when we just found out that we're at 10 out of 10 at this point, we're very, very pleased. And I want you to know this is as a result of a lot of hard work by a lot of people in our office.
Yeah.
I have the privilege of being the voice of the office, but I want you to know the work's done by others, and they're doing an excellent job. We're very pleased.
And it's just.
What we're going to do is take you inside the line and let you do some of the filming before we get to that final point where we raise the top of the vault, and then we'll have you go back behind the line again, and then we'll come back to you in a little bit, okay?
Okay.
Clark County Coroner Mike Murphy said, "What many of these cases represent for families is resolution, and we hope with this case in particular we can solve a 28-year-old mystery."
The other part of this that I think is important is that if you look across this cemetery and even here closely, you'll see that there are flowers and there are names on graves. But if you look over there are not. There is someone that speaks for all of these people. No one speaks for these folks. And I think it's incumbent upon us to speak for those folks, if we can. And I think that's a part of our obligation. I think it's definitely a part of our responsibility. And so we feel like we were very fortunate to get this grant money to take that opportunity to try to do that. I think when you break new ground, you have to be prepared that sometimes you won't be as successful as you think you will. But again, you always have to have that optimism, and we have it. And there's been a lot of folks in our office that have worked very hard on this process, and I want to compliment them for their work.
My last question, who is this woman as far as you know right now?
What we know about her is that she is a woman that was middle-aged that died in the Greyhound bus depot. She died of natural causes. It appeared at one point that she did have some personal belongings, but they had been gone through, so the identification was not present. She did not show on fingerprints at that time. There was nothing that would lead to an identification. One of the things we talked about earlier was we actually have a photo. Back in those days, the idea of putting a photo into the media for identification was considered inappropriate. Even when we did it in 2002 on the internet, it was questionable. But once we started solving cases, I think people recognized the importance of the partnership between the media and our office. And we value that partnership, and that's the way we identify folks.
Okay.